On a drizzly day in West London, Isla slipped into a small charity shop, hoping to escape the cold. As she pushed open the door, the bell gave a tired chime. The shop greeted her with a mix of scents, old pages, settled dust, and a hint of lavender lingering in the air. Isla's plan was just a quick break from the rain. But fate had other ideas. In the back of the shop, squeezed between worn vinyl records and mismatched teacups, she spotted a weathered box. The label, faded and barely legible, read, "Old tapes, 1990s, do not price." Isla's curiosity was instantly captured. Restoring lost audio was her unusual passion. Night after night, she brought old, forgotten sounds back to life for podcasts. Now, kneeling down, she opened the box in front of her. Inside, she found a jumble of cassettes, some with handwritten titles, others blank, their stickers peeling away like old scabs. One tape stood out, a plain black cassette, unlabeled except for a tiny blue crown drawn by hand. She called out, "Excuse me," to the gray-haired man at the counter. "How much for these?" He adjusted his glasses, examined the worn box, and gave a small shake of his head. "Ah, those," he said. "They came in with a collection of odds and ends from an estate sale. No idea whether any of them still play. Tell you what, take the whole box for £5, if you're interested." Illa lingered, just long enough to be polite, then nodded. Agreed. Hours later, in her cramped flat above a bakery, Illa slid the unmarked cassette into her old Sony player. She braced herself for a wall of static, distant echoes of someone's mixtape, maybe nothing at all. Instead, there was a gentle mechanical click. Silence hung in the air, and then a woman's voice emerged, warm, poised, but touched with uncertainty. "I suppose this is where we start," she said quietly. "You wanted honesty. I'm not sure the world has ever truly welcomed that part of me." Isla froze. She'd never met Diana in person before. What she knew came only from childhood mementos, photos on souvenir mugs, old news broadcasts, fading tabloid headlines. But this voice was unmistakable. She pressed rewind, then play again, needing to be sure. "I'm doing this," the woman's voice continued, "because if anything happens to me, I want someone to know the unfiltered truth, the version untouched by handlers or shaped for the public." Isla felt the fine hairs on her skin stand on end. Another voice joined in a tone that was measured and slightly older. Its calmness hinted at the practiced neutrality of someone well used to listening. "Very well," the man replied. "Officially, we'll call these private sessions. You're free to leave at any time. No one ever needs to know they exist." Diana responded with a small, bittersweet laugh. "That's the most implausible thing I've heard in ages. But carry on. Ask your questions, listener." Isla's pulse raced. She leaned in, as if getting closer could draw her through the speakers and back into long-lost moments. Who was this other voice, this so-called listener? How did these tapes end up abandoned among a pile of forgotten odds and ends? What else could be hidden in that neglected box? As the recording played, something unsettling struck her. These weren't interviews made for headlines or staged conversations for a memoir. What she was hearing were confessions. Over the next few days, Isla listened to every moment of that first tape again and again. She carefully digitized the audio, removing the static and hiss, but preserving Diana's true voice. Every sentence unfolded slowly, each word forcing its way out after years of silence. In one section, Diana confided, "They love to call me paranoid. But the truth is, paranoia is just fear that's been proven right. I've seen too much to simply ignore it." The man rarely interrupted. When he did, it was only to encourage her, guiding her gently rather than taking charge. "Earlier, you spoke of being followed," he prompted. "Not by the press, but by someone else." Diana paused before answering. "Yes, by them, the gray people. Civil servants?" he guessed. She shook her head. "No, shadows in tailored suits. They're never in the pictures. They slip quietly through rooms, and people pretend not to see. The moment I speak up or raise my voice, they appear always at the edge of the crowd. If I go somewhere off limits, they already know." She let out a low, rueful laugh. In a strange way, the flashing bulbs almost felt like protection. "When the camera lights are on, those shadows stay away, but when the flashes fade, I can feel them closing in." Alaya paused, steadying her breath. Listening felt intrusive, like stumbling into the raw, beating heart of hidden history. Tension ran beneath Diana's words, but so did stories that edged on legend. In a later recording, Diana described a secretive dinner. This time there were no journalists, no camera flashes, no signs of officialdom. It was just a small, intimate circle. Among them was a man from a country no one expected to see represented at a royal table. When Diana revealed where he was from, Isla's mouth dropped open in shock. he once told me. Diana said that if I ever truly wanted to disappear, there were islands out there, places drawn on maps, but never really existing. Destinations where people's pasts could vanish and backgrounds meant nothing at all. He warned me it was dangerous, but made it clear the option was real. Looking into his eyes, it felt like he was saying, "You might need to remember this someday." "Did you ever think about it?" the listener asked quietly. Diana paused. On the recording, only the faint clinking of her rings disturbed the silence. "I wrote down the name," she finally replied. "On a slip of paper I later set alight. But that name never left my memory. I always remember the exits. That's my not-so-pretty secret, isn't it? Even when I'm smiling for cameras or greeting children, there's always a part of my mind watching for a way out." A cold shiver ran down Ila's spine. This was not the polished figure seen in highlight reels and magazine tributes. Here was a woman who mapped every escape, always planning for the unseen threat. Later in the recording, the interviewer asked gently, "Do you think there's a coordinated effort to control you beyond what the press does?" Diana replied, her tone measured and deliberate. "I suspect that every institution fights to preserve itself. If someone inside becomes more dangerous than the version of truth they want told, that person shifts from valued to vulnerable. That's been my path. Over the past few years, I've felt myself slowly slipping from one role to the other." Her words softened, almost tender. "This is really why I'm recording with you, not so much to accuse, but to leave a trail, just in case one day a gentle soul comes searching." Ilya pressed pause, staring thoughtfully at the digital waveform blinking on her laptop. She wondered, someone kind, somewhere in the future. That phrase lingered, uncomfortably close, as if it had been meant just for Ila herself. She turned her attention back to the battered box. 9 cassettes remained, each one an unopened door. If the first tape held only hints, what else could be hidden on the others? By the time Ila queued up tape number 4, her routine felt split in two. Her days were spent editing recordings for small-time clients, but every evening she vanished into the echoes of the 1990s, drawn down shadowed hallways of memory by Diana's voice. With the 4th tape, something shifted. Diana's voice was urgent, as if things outside the room were starting to spiral out of control. She explained, "The constant rumors about me act almost like a shield for others. They let people believe I'm unstable, too emotional, hard to manage. So when I talk about feeling watched or suggest that plans for my life are unfolding without my knowledge, it all gets dismissed. I become the melodramatic woman again, a tired old story." The interviewer lowered their voice. "Is there anything concrete you've heard?" Diana replied, "If anything exists, it's never put in writing. There are just hints, quick flashes of color, a stray remark, voices that suddenly go quiet when I walk in." Later, Diana described finding a series of anonymous notes. Each one was written with the same careful, steady hand. The notes appeared in unexpected places, tucked inside a worn novel at the Palace Library, slipped between drafts of a charity speech, even peeking out from one of her son's textbooks. Each message was short, a date, a cryptic warning, an odd phrase. "The route can be changed. Trust the driver, not the car. Some tunnels have 2 exits. I never showed them to anyone," Diana confessed. "They would have just accused me of making it up, or worse, taken them away so I could never find out the truth." "Do you still have the letters?" the interviewer asked. A quiet rustle of papers answered him. "I stashed them in a cookbook no one ever touches," she replied. Mary Berry, without knowing it, had become the keeper of palace secrets, her recipes now shrouding tales of high stakes. The interviewer actually laughed, and for a moment, Diana's voice felt lighter, less burdened, almost free. But that brief lightness faded swiftly. Diana continued, her tone edged with apprehension. "Then there's the matter of the island, the one people say is beyond the reach of any map." Isla found herself leaning in, barely breathing. "It started as nothing more than palace gossip," Diana explained. "Whispered tales echo through the hallways, a place where retired politicians are sent after they've fallen out of favor. Allegedly, it's a private island, untouched by journalists, free from surveillance, and absent of any expectations. Some call it a gilded cage, others a rare haven. Here's the catch, no one knows what it truly is until they arrive." "Did they ever offer you this kind of escape?" the listener asked. "No one has said it outright," she replied. "They haven't reached the point where they'd lock me away just for appearances, not yet. Still, I've noticed the hints, gentle suggestions, barely hidden comments. Perhaps you'd benefit from a restful break, far from the spotlight. Somewhere peaceful, permanent." For the first time in hours of tapes, Diana's voice trembled. "I have no wish to vanish onto an island no one will admit exists," she murmured. I want to be part of real life, close to my boys, actively involved, living my flawed, honest truth. Yet sometimes, I can't help but wonder if they ever truly will. Isla stopped the recording, suddenly aware that her hands had curled into tight fists. She slowly pried her fingers apart, struggling to release the tension. "They're just recordings," she reminded herself. "Old rumors, secondhand anxieties." But the fifth tape was different. It broke the pattern. This time, background noise came through city traffic, the low hum of movement. Diana's voice was clearer, more intimate, as if she was speaking straight into the device. "I want to admit something," she began. "You tested them," the listener prompted. "The people keeping watch over me," Diana confirmed. "One day I decided to change my routine, no warning to anyone official. I told only one trusted friend and one driver. Our destination, a small hospice on the edge of the city, completely off the schedule books. Less than 30 minutes after we left, a gray car began to follow us, a vehicle I'd never seen before. It had no readable license plate, and there wasn't a single identifying mark on it. Whenever we turned off our planned route, the car copied every move, but the moment we doubled back, it disappeared without a trace. Maybe it was pure chance, the interviewer suggested. Maybe so, Diana replied, but I've stopped trusting coincidences that seem to shadow my every step. The tape was silent for a while. When Diana finally spoke again, her voice was low and cautious. "I feel like they're weighing their options. Making me disappear would be far too obvious. It's safer for them to damage my reputation instead. And yet, that island lingers in the background, always there as an option." "It's the island no one ever admits to," murmured the listener. "Not until you wake up there," Diana replied. The ninth recording was different from all the others. Any sense of composure was gone. Rain whispered against the glass, and a loud clock ticked on, counting every fleeting moment. "We might be at the end of these conversations, at least for now," Diana began. "I leave on another journey tomorrow." The listener sensed her anxiety. "You sound unsettled," he said. "I am," she confessed. "I've heard whispers, signals that powerful people are growing uneasy about the company I keep. Suddenly, being beloved by many isn't a strength, it's a threat." And then there was her. Isla felt her whole body tense at the thought. There had been hints about this presence in earlier recordings, but the details were always just out of reach. "The woman?" the interviewer asked. "The one in gray," Diana confirmed. "I used to think she reported to them, but now I'm not so sure." Diana recounted how she would often spot this figure at different gatherings, always on the outskirts, blending in with simple, elegant clothes. No camera, white gloves, a hat pulled low, shading her face. One day, Diana decided to confront her. "I walked right up to her," Diana recalled. "My thinking was, if she runs away, she must be spying. If she stays, maybe she's simply unwell." But the woman did neither. Instead, she stepped directly into Diana's path and said, "They are rewriting the ending." Then she disappeared into the crowd as if she had never been there at all. "Rewriting what exactly?" the listener asked. "My story," Diana replied. "How am I supposed to fit into their narrative? They cast me in a role, the sorrowful princess, the neglected wife, the charming distraction." But everything changed the moment I wanted to be something more. For a brief moment her voice broke. Large institutions always struggle with unpredictability. On that recording, Diana mentioned a line that kept turning up in those strange letters. "The root is the weapon." She almost laughed, but you could hear a sharpness in her voice. "Enemies no longer frighten me," she confessed. "What unsettles me now are the carefully planned schedules, the unseen hands that decide which path I take each day." The listener replied, almost in a whisper. "Tunnels, bridges, underpasses." "Exactly," she breathed. "Those are the kinds of places where everything can change in an instant. And in the end, the official story is the only one that lasts." There was a moment of silence, then her steady exhale filled the room. "That's why," she said, "I have my own backup plan. There's one man I trust. Let's call him Harbor. If anything ever feels wrong, I'll give him the signal we came up with, just a simple gesture, like placing my hand on the window. Nothing dramatic, nothing to draw attention. If Harbor sees it, he'll change course right away. No tunnels, no bottlenecks. We would just keep driving straight ahead until surveillance could no longer follow us." "What if he misses your signal?" the listener asked quietly. Diana's reply softened, nearly a whisper. "Then maybe this really is my final recording." Isla paused the audio, unable to continue for a moment. When she finally pressed play, Diana's voice sounded steadier, like she'd taken a moment to collect herself. "Do you want to know the strangest part?" Diana asked. "I'm not afraid of death itself. What haunts me is the thought that my story might be twisted after I'm gone. Will they turn me into a warning, a lunatic, or some kind of saint? None of those labels really fit. I'm just a woman, imperfect, anxious, relentless, who loves her children more fiercely than anything in the world. I'm nothing more or less than a person. And if someone ever uncovers these tapes, prompted the listener, Diana let out a weary, gentle laugh. At least one person will know that I tried, she replied. Tried to speak up, tried to escape, tried to find grace, tried to carve out a life that belonged to me. The closing moments of the tape brought no big revelations, just an achingly ordinary glimpse into her world. Diana left the listener with a question. Do you believe anyone can truly be free? There was no answer, only the faint click of the recorder as their session ended. That was it. No dramatic finale, no accusations. Just a woman stepping uncertainly into days she might not survive, quietly leaving clues in hopes that someone somewhere would follow them. Isla lingered in the half-lit apartment long after the audio files finished saving. Across the street, the bakery's lights were already out. The gentle rumble of the city drifted in through the misty glass. On her computer, hours of fragile restoration work waited, voices recorded decades ago, still powerful enough to spark upheaval even now. Isla found herself at a crossroads. She could uncover these secrets, sell them, turn them into a story that would capture the world's attention, or she could hide them again, locking them away in the digital ether. Diana's final words echoed in her mind. If anyone ever listens to this, I hope they are gentle. Isla paused and searched within, quietly asking the darkness, am I gentle? Slowly, she opened a new file. Her words began to fill the empty page. She didn't write a catchy headline or craft a polished pitch. Instead, she created a complete transcript, every word spoken, every fragment of silence, every breath carefully captured and preserved. Isla layered in notes and dates, cross-checking everything she could. She was careful to separate rumors from facts, sticking only to what the evidence could support. When she was done, she saved the document under a subtle name, The Second Sunrise, unofficial. Then, in a move that surprised even herself, Isla encrypted the original audio, split it into segments, and sent them not to the hungry media, but to a select group of historians and archivists scattered across the world. She chose people whose commitment to truth mattered more than any thirst for drama. Each file was accompanied by a note. These recordings might not be authentic, Isla wrote, but the woman speaking in them trusted that someone somewhere would listen with compassion. Please decide together, is the world ready to hear? When she sent the last message, an unexpected sense of peace bloomed within her, as if a great weight had drifted from her shoulders. Many years ago, a princess hid away tapes and notebooks. She slipped them beneath floorboards, tucked them between cookbooks and bricks, all in the hope that someday a sympathetic soul would discover her truth. Now, in a cramped London apartment, someone she would never know had become that listener. Isla moved to the window. The rain had stopped, and city streetlights cast soft rings across the glistening asphalt. Beyond the city, past the security details, the television cameras, and regal walls, the ocean touched an invisible shore. Maybe somewhere out there on a phantom island, people could share their stories freely, without fear. Or perhaps such a place never existed. But one thing was crystal clear. Diana's voice, trembling yet defiant, deeply real, had finally broken free from the narrative others wrote for her. Whether those tapes are ever heard by the world or stay hidden forever almost doesn't matter. Her secret had already served its purpose. It had found a new home, safely hidden in another human heart.